On this episode of the Denver Bronco Roundup, we're talking wide receivers, whether free agents, whether trade availability. There's lots of options for the Denver Bronco Roundups. Also, Nick Shook, NFL.com, coming in with Bo Nix, ranked number 20 as far as quarterbacks are concerned. All that and more as we round it up here on the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast next. Well, welcome in everybody to the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast. We're brought to you by Rocky Mountain Sports Network. We are sponsored by the amazing Morgan Trinkets. And man, it's a Saturday night, a little bit off kilter, man. We usually come in on Friday. Hope everyone had a fantastic Valentine's Day. Just know that we love you. And that's why we're here this evening, rocking out another podcast. My name is Keith Brugman, and I got to welcome in my co-host here. You know him, you love him. We're ready to take off with Trevor, the Rocket Man Salzman. How you doing tonight, sir?
Doing well, Keith. Excited to be here and talk some Bronco football. It felt a little off last night. Us not being here. I think that's the first time I've missed a Friday podcast in a while. So, but excited to be here tonight and bring some great takes and talk some Broncos football.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Can't wait to get into it, man. We got our good friend Ernie Mays coming in here and saying hello to us, saying hello, Keith. Go Broncos country only, and go and Bo Nix for 6. And Trevor, if is Broncos first, always Broncos first, right, Trevor?
Yeah, always Broncos first, but critical of them when it deserves to be mentioned. I'm critical of them, but when they get their praises or when they do something well, and I sing the praises, I'll be the first one to praise them for it.
Hey, we might be able to praise a little bit. They finally got a coach under contract, man. It seems like we've been talking about him forever. There's a long list that we'll have to fill up. I'm sure we'll be talking about plenty more, but talk about it, man. Special teams finally wrapped up, buddy.
Yeah, the Broncos. We've been talking about this for a little bit, but Darren Rizzi, they finally got their man, the guy that they wanted, as their special teams coordinator, the former Saints interim head coach from last season. Took over for Dennis Allen. And this is the thing. I mean, we've been talking about this, Keith, for a while. With Rizzi, he has that background. Sean Payton loves these guys that he has backgrounds with and he's familiar with. And so, we shall see how this turns out. Rizzi served under Sean Payton from 2019 to 2024. 2024 in New Orleans, I should say. That was his time in New Orleans from 2019 to 2024. And his special teams unit have ranked the top of the NFL for several times throughout his career. So, I think that's seems like a great hire on the face of it. We got to see how it plays out and see if it actually is a great hire. I think he will bring the energy and we'll get these guys on point, ready to go, special team wise. But we were waiting on this for a little bit. Kellen Moore being named the Saints head coach, and Rizzi was in. I think he was in the mix still for that head coaching job in New Orleans. Finally gets his job here in Denver. Also to note that he's also the assistant head coach as well in Denver. So I think it's a good thing for Rizzi and familiar face for Sean Payton as well.
Yeah, need to give him a little bit of an upgrade, and obviously to move over to the position that he did. You can't just hire someone to the exact same position, let's say special teams. And I don't know if interim head coach necessarily sticks with you, right? So he needed to upgrade. Assistant head coach, though, that is something to note, I would say. A lot of coaching things, a lot of coaching positions still to be filled. It's going to be interesting to kind of go through this offseason. This is one that we kind of had earmarked, right? One of the few that we knew that maybe there was someone waiting in the wings because, again, Ben Kotwika and the performance that he put out there, not necessarily anything that was, you know, something to, snub your nose at or turn your nose up at, it didn't necessarily stink out there, man. It was okay. I mean, I'd say most teams would be pretty happy with what we were able to accomplish in special teams last year. Get a Pro Bowler, stuff like that, not too bad. That being said, Mike Westhoff moves on. That was also, I think, a very key component that kind of held that all together. But like you said, in all, I think that with Rizzy coming on board, it's someone that Peyton's very, very familiar with, someone that's been at the top of the game, and we really shouldn't feel a fall off. We really shouldn't see it. We shouldn't expect it. But it is a tall task in front of the new coaching staff and what they're going to do with the players that they'll be able to play with.
Yeah, and it's a risky hire too. I mean, if you're Sean Payton, right? Because your special teams unit was pretty solid throughout the year. I don't think it wasn't an issue. And we've seen a really good special teams unit since Sean Payton has taken over as a head coach in Denver. He's really prioritized special teams, and but I think if he knows Darren Rizzi real well and he knows this is an upgrade, for sure he knows. I mean, again, you never know for sure until you step out in the field. But if you have a pretty good inkling that this is going to be an upgrade, I think you go for it. And Sean Payton, he was aggressive. He went for it, and probably was able to offer Darren Rizzi something that he couldn't turn down. Obviously, after the Saints naming somebody else as their head coach, of course, you want that head coaching job if you can possibly get it. But as soon as Kellen Moore was hired, I'm sure Sean was on the phone with Rizzi trying to get him here in Denver aggressively.
Just really quick, whether it be Rizzi, whether it be Jim Leonard, Trevor, really quick, do you know what the salary cap is for head coaches or coaching staffs?
Zero. Nothing. There's no cap.
There's zero cap. If you have owners with deep pockets and you want to coach and you need to get them paid, it can get done. That's the one place where it's like, hey, well, not the one place, but it's one of the places where it's like, hey, man, we don't restrict you in any way.
No.
And that's directly affecting a team. That's about as close to being able to add extra money for a player as there could be. Adding extra money for a coach can be key, man. And I like what the Denver Broncos are doing. I like what Michael Ronquillo's doing as well. He's coming in here. He's letting us know that it's a great evening. He's saying good evening to Keith and Trevor and go Bo Broncos. He's giving us those orange and blue hearts, that mile-high salute. He's dropping 100 stars, and we appreciate the support, Michael. Thank you very much for jumping in here. Hopefully you'll jump in here on a few of these topics, man. Trevor came to me and he said, you know what? We didn't get to a few things, and then this kind of just blew into a very large topic. Wide receiver is a place that we absolutely need some help, Trevor. And, whether it's the pundits, whether it's Broncos country, whether it's the coaching staff and the front office and George Payton, I think we all know that we could probably use a little bit additional help when it comes to a receiver on this team. One of the guys that we didn't get to and I want to get to tonight, and it's a guy that's going to kick off our topic, and it's one that you wanted to talk about. That's Mr. Deebo Samuel. So I figured I'd just throw up, we have a few graphics here, just kind of really breaks down what maybe 2024 looked like for these guys. Didn't go any deeper. So it's just a 2024, and stats don't tell everything. But we got to get into Mr. Deebo Samuel, and I know that you are interested in talking about this topic, so I'm going to let you take it away, sir.
Yeah, so the 49ers, they're wanting to move off Deebo Samuel to kind of keep it short. I think that both sides are gonna part ways this offseason. It just depends on if the 49ers can get anything for Deebo Samuel or not. And then again, looking at this deep down, Keith, I know that there's so many people that think Deebo Samuel would be a good fit here in Denver, but just kind of taking a look at the cap hit right here, $15.9 million, damn near almost $16 million cap hit for Deebo Samuel just coming up this season. He hasn't had 1,000 yards since 2021. His yak yards, Keith, also are down. And it's the second lowest of his career, 421 total yak yards, and that's without Christian McCaffrey for most of the season, and multiple injuries on the 49ers side. So the stats don't lie. I agree with that, and I've seen film of Deebo Samuel as well. So I kind of know this a little bit. I don't think that he's just a player he used to be, and that's the concern level right there, right away. There's some off the field things that are also some concerns as well, that concern me. We talk about this culture that Sean Payton has built in Denver for since he got in Denver, since he first arrived, and I don't think that Deebo Samuel fits into that culture, honestly, Keith. He says, Deebo Samuel on multiple times has went on Twitter and has asked for a trade, or also just said he's not getting the football. That's just something that Sean Payton, I don't think, wants to deal with, in my opinion. And so for me, just straight up trading for Deebo Samuel, I don't see it. I really don't. Now, if he gets released, it's a different topic and different conversation. I'm not saying that the Broncos should do whatever they have to do to get him as far as if he's released. I'm just saying I don't think, they want to trade the draft capital for him and take on the cap hit that they're going to have to take on to bring Deebo Samuel to Denver. So, I'm just Deebo Samuel's kind of a guy that, maybe he has interest in coming to Denver. I don't know if the Broncos have much interest in him, though, honestly. And also, I think he does a lot of what Marvin Mims already does. And so I think Marvin Mims, being in the role, that gadget role that he's in, I don't think you need an upgrade from there right now. And I don't think Deebo Samuel really is much of an upgrade over Marvin Mims, in my opinion.
Man, talk about just like taking all of my thunder, taking all of my points, man. You hit a lot of nails on the head. I'll just kind of go backwards, man. A guy that does a lot of things that Marvin Mims does. Not only the gadget plays that Sean Payton's likes to draw up, but also he's a return guy. I went back and looked at his 2025 or 2024, 2025 highlight reel, and it was half of it was returns. I mean, especially in a year that, you're only looking at 670 yards on 15 games. It's not necessarily your breakout year, Trevor.
Yeah.
The other thing that really worries me is I looked at Deebo Samuel at South Carolina versus Deebo Samuel on the 49ers in 2024. And one of the things that Sean Payton says is, I like these guys playing at their college weight.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way that Deebo Samuel is at his college weight. I would say he's 30 pounds away from his college weight.
Mm-hmm.
This is a different guy. Like you said, I don't think he's at the height of his game. I think that he doesn't necessarily fit the culture in the way that he's demanded trades. And really what I think he's after is more dollar oriented than it is goal oriented. And I don't know if that necessarily fits this Denver Broncos team. I know that he was very highly linked, and maybe, he's wanting, to maybe come onto the Broncos, and Bo Nix would be a great quarterback or whatever have you. At some point, you also need to get a little bit of fire started if you want, if you wanted to be able to, demand a trade and hopefully have some interest out there, or at least make it look like there's some interest for you. Mm-hmm. Trevor, if Deebo Samuel was all the way down to possibly just maybe being cut, would you give anything for him to make sure that you got Deebo Samuel rather than him hitting the free agent market and then having to try to scoop him up and be one of the first?
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm just not in the mindset of trading draft capital right now. I mean, Cooper Kupp, different conversation. If the Rams are want to eat money, all depends on what San Francisco want to eat money wise. But for me, I just don't think Deebo Samuel's needed on this team. That's not what the Broncos need. They have that gadget player, Marvin Mims. I don't think Deebo Samuel does much for the Broncos. I don't think he moves the needle much for them. And also, like we said, the stats don't matter. But there was a lot of injuries in San Francisco. Brandon Ayuk was out, McCaffrey was out, and he wasn't able to put up great stats. I mean, and so he's just like that. That is concerning because he's not getting the football, and then he's continuing to ask, why am I not getting the football? I'm open and whatnot. So there is an issue. There's a big issue there for me when it comes to the stats and also just looking at him when he plays. So yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I don't think Deebo Samuel fits what the Broncos are looking for and what they need.
Very good. We're not being disagreed with. Pearl said, at first I thought get him, but the more I read about him, I say no way. Michael Ronquillo says no way. Ernie Mace came in, and I'll just go through this piece by piece. If you guys are going to recommend people, we have a little bit of a graphic. I'll throw it up for you. Ernie Mace says, how about T. Higgins? Well, how about T. Higgins, man? T. Higgins last year had quite a year. 12 games is where he was able to come in and play, and I think I'll start in. 911 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's the premier piece out on the free agent market. If he hits that free agent market, we'll have to wait and see exactly what the Cincinnati Bengals do as well. They do have options to maybe keep him under contract and re-sign him or franchise tag him. But there is an option that he's going to be out on the free agent or out there on the market. What do you think, Trevor, about T. Higgins?
I think it's going to cost too much. I mean, honestly, I mean, and that's just the short answer of it. I mean, again, there's concerns with all these free agents on the open market. This is why I'm a big fan of drafting and developing, because a lot of these guys hit the open market for a reason. I know what Cincinnati is because they can't pay everybody. I understand that happens once in a while, but sometimes these guys have injury issues. Sometimes it's lack of performance or whatnot. So and kind of scheme they were in, maybe it's the wrong scheme, and there's just so many different reasons why these guys are free agents. But for T. Higgins, I mean, yeah, it's been also injuries. He hasn't played a full season ever, and since he's been in the league. So, and I don't think, in my opinion, Keith, I don't think T. Higgins is the number one. I don't. I think that he's a number 2 wide receiver, and he's going to get paid a lot of money. I think that you're going to have teams that are going to be willing to outpay you for T. Higgins, and I just don't think the Broncos right now, with the amount of needs they have on both sides of the football, that they can afford to kind of get in one of those bidding wars for one of the top weapons in free agency. So I know that you want to put weapons around Bo Nix long term, but you have to be smart and strategic on how you do so. When it comes to paying people, so paying players, and you got to pay the right players. So I mean, I'm not on T. Higgins. I think he's going to cost too much. I think he's a good wide receiver. I just don't think he's elite wide receiver, and I think he's going to get elite money this offseason from another team if he leaves Cincinnati.
Well, there's a couple of teams that have really big checkbooks right now. One being the Patriots. The Patriots could definitely go out there, just overpay for a T. Higgins. But another one, and I just want to ask you this, you okay if T. Higgins goes to the Las Vegas Raiders and teams up with whatever quarterback is out there for him to be thrown to? Because that's certainly an opportunity with the checkbook that they have right now. T. Higgins to the Las Vegas Raiders. Is that okay, buddy?
Am I okay with that? I mean, no, but I think that here's the thing with T. Higgins. I think that, again, are you paying him to go somewhere else, or are you paying him because you want him? That's just, I think, a different conversation. And so if you can save yourself the money and still be able to get a good productive wide receiver either on the free agent market, trades, or in the draft, I think that you'd be better off. And I think the Broncos are better off spreading their cap money, the amount of cap per minute. Again, it's going to change around to solve multiple positions of need instead of just one, because they're not just one wide receiver away.
Fair enough. Last question on this, man, because I think this is one of those big guys when it comes to the dollars that will need to be spent. How much would you be willing to pay? How much does he get paid average per year?
I've heard anywhere from $30 million a year. That's the rumor going around. I don't know that he'll get quite that much, but I think it'll definitely be in the 20s. I think mid 20s. I'd say right now, I'd say like 24, 25 million a year for T. Higgins. And what would I be willing to pay? Probably 20 is the max. And that's that's going to be a tough pill to swallow, because you're probably going to have to move off of Cortland Sutton. And I don't know that I'd be willing to do so when he was Bo Nix's favorite target and number 1 target this past season. I just don't know. That's a thing that's a lot to ask for when it comes to trying to help Bo Nix out. You want to try to help him out, but you want to try not to hurt, Bo Nix going forward. And in T. Higgins and Bo Nix, they don't have that connection right now. So they're going to have to take time to get that connection, find that connection that Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix already have.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Yeah. Plus, I mean, I think you pointed out a great point. Do we need 2 number 2s?
Yeah.
Do we really need 2 number 2s? T. Higgins will cost too much, says Mr. Michael Ronquillo. I think that's a fair consensus. When we're starting to talk about, the money that this guy is absolutely going to demand, it's going to be pretty high. He's the premier piece. He's the creme de la creme when it comes to free agents out there on the market. And I hate to say it, but it's not a deep market. It's not one that we're going to be all jumping up and down and being excited about. It's not like years past when, great, great wide receivers seem like they come up on the market and available. Maybe not the greatest wide receiver, but one that gotta give it up on this one, man. I gotta give it up for the name. We go for Michael Ronquillo saying on Facebook, T. Higgins will cost too much, but I gotta give it up to this name over on YouTube. I love this. Victory Lap. Victory Lap's coming in over on YouTube, and he says, take a chance on Cup for the right price. So Cooper Kupp, man, let's get into this one. A guy that he's been dealing with injuries. Obviously, he's dealing with age, and he's maybe on the downside of his career, right? On the back end of his career, on the back nine at this point. 12 games last year, 710 yards. Not a bad statistic over 12 games, and 6 touchdowns as well. Trevor, for the right price, take a chance on Cooper Kupp, says Victory Lap. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm right there with Victory Lap there. I'm not trading a top, for anything, rounds 1 through 4 draft pick wise for Cooper Kupp. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, if you want to throw a 6th round pick at him, and the Rams are going to eat half his money, we can have a conversation. If the Rams are going to release him, just flat out release him, then I think it opens up the possibility of a Cooper Kupp being, a part of this Broncos team, and maybe the Broncos being seriously interested in. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just worried about the age, Keith, and I'm worried about the drop off. I know this last season, he wasn't horrible, I would say, but he got, if you paid attention to the Rams at all, he got flexed out of their offense a little bit, and so you wonder why that's the case. Is it just Stafford's not throwing the ball and he's open, or is he just not getting open? He's losing a couple steps. Those are always the worries with older wide receivers. He'll be 32 next year at the start of next season as well. And I don't know if the Broncos are in the landscape of paying and going out and getting veteran wide receivers that are above 30 years old, Keith. That's the thing here. And I say that because look what Sean Payton did this last year. Now, I know the whole cap situation. I understand that, but I just don't know if that's something he wants to fully commit to is a guy like Cooper Kupp. I think at a discount for sure. I think that they should be at least interested in him. But I think that, I mean, it depends on what the Rams are going to be asking for him, and if they will be willing to just outright cut him. And so we'll just kind of see. But for me, I would be interested in Cooper Kupp, but for the right price, like you said, I think you at least have to consider for what he brings to the table, and could possibly bring to the table going forward.
I will give Cooper Kupp this. We've talked about a couple of other, possible prospects coming to this team, starting off with one Deebo Samuel. And I feel like on the opposite side of as far as the culture fit. I do think that Cooper Kupp, if he signed up to be with the Denver Broncos, would come in and he would give everything he had. Everything he had may just not be all that much. There's a guy that has been battling injuries, battling age, but he's got some of the best hands in the league. He can at times have some of the best toe tap and foot drag swag on the sidelines as anybody in the league. He's been an absolute, consistent piece for whatever quarterback has been with the Rams throwing in the ball now. So, he is a great piece. He is one of those pieces that I would go out there and I would make sure I would secure the rights to him rather than him hitting free agency with a late round 7th, 6th round draft pick. Again, with the Rams picking up this massive contract, or at least part of the massive contract that he still has due to him. If not, he's got to go out there. He's got to hit free agency, and you got to hope that maybe he just chooses you, and I think there's enough pieces in place, and maybe a few more pieces that will be in place by the time Cooper Kupp has to make that decision, that maybe he does choose the Denver Broncos and we can get him on a real cheap deal, get him in here and add him as an additional piece.
Yeah. And go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
What I was going to say is also, as we just talked about with Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp has an injury history as well, hasn't played a full season since 2021, his breakout year in his career. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. Why is he hitting the open market? Why do the Rams want to get rid of him? That's something the Broncos are going to have the answers to if they're going to have any interest in Cooper Kupp. What I would say is that maybe they do kick the tires on Cooper Kupp over Deebo Samuel is because, like you just mentioned, Keith, the culture. I think he fits better with this culture. He wants to win, and the Broncos right now, you're hoping at least they're taking the right steps in the right direction to be successful and to win going forward. So, and then they were a playoff in this last year. So I think if you're Cooper Kupp, would you be intrigued to come to Denver? Yeah, I think you would. You have a more than capable quarterback to throw you the football, and you have an offense that's continuing to grow, has different pieces that continue to grow. You have a play caller like Sean Payton, who will put you in position to be successful and put you in position to be open too. So, yeah, I mean, they think that you absolutely have to consider Cooper Kupp, but there's going to be some sort of baggage, like with a lot of these veteran wide receivers that are going to be hit in the open market. There's going to be some baggage there with Cooper Kupp. You just got to see if you can have the answers to that before you bring him in.
Yeah, I'm gonna back up on some comments, get caught up on a few because we had a few with some of the guys that we were talking about earlier. Mr. Roy Osborne coming in saying, "Good evening, Horseman. Higgins is not on my list just for the cost and the connection." Ernie May saying he's not worth 30 million. We keep what we have. Bo Nix needs wide receiver Cortland Sutton here with the Broncos, says Michael Ronquillo. That connection was pretty dang key last year, and it would be something to see that all of a sudden disappear for some reason if we decided we're doing something crazy. And, we'll have some crazy thoughts out here of other wide receivers we might be able to get into as well. Biggie Bronco says, any wide receiver you put out there with T. Higgins, with our training staff, the Bengals get the cheapest of the cheap. Our owners pay for stuff. He also says, give me T. Higgins, pair him up with Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims in the slot for him. So he's all over Marvin, or going out there and maybe paying big for T. Higgins. I tell you what, if we bring in again a guy like T. Higgins, though, in my opinion, you're reworking a lot of contracts. You're probably pushing some dead money down the line. You're maybe even cutting a guy or two or trading a guy or two that you maybe might not want to get rid of, like Michael Ronquillo was saying, and we need to maybe make sure that we keep Cortland Sutton around, and make sure that we have him as well. It might not be an option if you're talking T. Higgins at that point because of, again, just the dollars that maybe Cortland's going to maybe want on top of bringing in a T. Higgins. So Roy Osborne says the Cooper has an injury history. He's only playing on 20 games in 3 seasons. I say no. And Deebo is way out of the question. And so far, David McElrath has given us a no on all 3. So, again, Cooper Kupp, right deal. I think he's the right fit, the right makeup, to come in here and really be a piece for the Denver Broncos. It's just how much are you going to get from him? How many games are you going to get? Everyone's kind of alluded to it, whether us or in the posse. We appreciate you all chiming in. I want to get to one more. This was brought up by Victory Lap as well. Davante Adams would be an okay fit, says Victory Lap. Davante Adams, obviously, as the Jets continue to retool, maybe an option to go out there and, figure out what you can get for or do with a Davante Adams on your team. 11 games, 854 yards, 7 touchdowns. Adams will be an okay fit, says Victory Lap. What say you, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, the production on the field. I mean, listen, I think that that's better than the 2 guys we've just talked about with Deebo Samuel and Cooper Kupp. But my problem is with Davante Adams is he's forced his way out everywhere he's been. Like, do you want that? It goes back to the whole culture thing. Sean Payton, made that pretty much a priority and saying, we want the right players in here, not just on the field, but off the field as well, and can fit within our locker room and within our culture. So, Davante Adams, I mean, again, we're just back to the conversation again. Is that are the Jets just going to release him? It sounds like that he's going to not be a New York Jet, of course, but what the price tag for him is. I think you at least got to consider it. But I just worry about the culture wise and what he brings personality wise because he's asked out every single where he's been, and he just doesn't seem to be content in where he goes. He's following Aaron Rodgers everywhere, and trying to go. Pair up with Derek Carr with the Raiders. But so if he can buy into this team though, Keith, if Sean Payton can talk Davante Adams into buying into this team, and if he gets released, a 1-year deal for Davante Adams, I think you got to consider it.
Yeah, on a release, with the right attitude coming
Yeah.
in, yeah, I mean, the talent level is there. I
Yeah.
mean, he's getting older. Not this is not a young guy anymore. He's spent, you know, quite a few years with Mr. Aaron Rodgers. Let's put it that way. So, it's he's getting up there in age, and it's starting to show maybe just a tick,
Mhm.
just a tick, but still a very protective individual. But I'm right there with you, man. When it comes to character concerns, when it comes to the culture we're building, George Payton, Sean Payton, especially said it up there in his year-end presser. The type of guys that we're looking for are the type of guys that just
Mhm.
love football, love football, love football, live, breathe it. I don't know if that necessarily describes Devontae Adams with a Taco Bell in his house. I don't know. I'm just saying it just doesn't seem like it fits all that well, man. I'm gonna get to one more, um, because I think it's worth talking about right when we're right here on this particular screen. Got to get to Graham over on YouTube, part of the K&K Sports Show. Got to check out the K&K Sports Show if you get a chance. He's asking a question. Do you guys buy the news that Rodgers begged the Jets to keep him just one more year? Graham, that's a great question. Trevor, do you have an answer?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I wish I was inside that building and can know what's going on. But I mean, I don't know about beg. Maybe he was definitely pushing for that. I would say I don't know about begging, just because he is a Hall of Fame quarterback, and some team is gonna if he's gonna continue to play, some team will probably take a chance on him. I don't know that necessarily he's going to be their starting quarterback next year, but maybe compete for a starting job next year. But obviously, it's not going to work regardless. I mean, the Jets are going to move on. Aaron Glenn's a guy that again believes in culture, and that's what. And he's a Sean Payton. Him and Sean Payton have that connection from when Aaron Glenn was back with the Saints, actually. So that's
Mhm.
what Aaron Glenn's looking for, is to build that strong culture back with the Jets. And so yeah, I don't. I mean, Rodgers can beg all he wants, or he can plead his case all he wants. But I think Aaron Glenn and Darren Moogie was just ready to move on.
Yeah, I think that's a fair case, man. I don't know about Bag, Graham. I don't know about Bag, but wanting the opportunity for one more year as a New York Jet was something that I could definitely see Aaron Rodgers wanting. If you look at the landscape of, like you were kind of hinting towards, Trevor, where he's going to land, what opportunity he's going to have, it doesn't look all rosy. There's not a whole lot of teams that are going to be, I don't think, going to be bagged up and or lined up and begging for Aaron Rodgers to join their team and lead them to the promised land. And those ones that are, I feel are going to be maybe a little bit more desperate than where he's been in the past, and maybe not necessarily have the roster that he would really like to play with. So maybe not begging, but saying, "Hey, man, I think we have an opportunity. If you bring me back one more year, I could see him, you know, kind of stating his case." Is the best way to put it. But to
Yeah.
be on a fly on the wall, like you said, Trevor, that would be something else. You know what else would be something else? If y'all head over to Morgan Trinkets Co. over on Etsy. Morgan Trinkets is your headquarters for Southwest Jewelry, Southwest Pottery, State Gold at wholesale prices. They've been doing it for over 34 years. Once a nationwide company, now they're just in your backyard. That's right, Northern Colorado, Southern Wyoming. They've been touring all over, doing gem shows and fairs, and you name it. You know what? They've been out there, peddling their wares and, killing it, to be quite honest, because, when you have 34 years experience, you know how to get it done. Southwest Jewelry, Southwest Pottery, Estate Gold at wholesale prices, as well as silver, 100% sterling silver. How do you get in touch with ooh, I almost let it slip out there, with Morgan Trinkets? Well, if you're not checking out one of their amazing shows, you head on over to Etsy, type in Morgan Trinkets Co. That's Morgan Trinkets Co. Takes you right to their page. Tell you what, any purchase over $50 shipped absolutely free. They take all major credit cards as well. Morgan Trinkets is your headquarters for the Southwest Jewelry, Southwest Pottery, Estate Gold at wholesale prices. That's silver as well, and they've been doing it for over 34 years. I don't know why you're still here. You should be over there right now over on Etsy. shopping away. Check them out. They're our great sponsor. We love them and we appreciate them. Morgan Trinkets, that's Morgan Trinkets Co. over on Etsy. Check them out today. I'm going to hit these comments as well real quick. I'm going to say hello to Karen because Karen's always great and coming in here supporting us. She's over on YouTube saying good evening all, and she's getting a little bit of love back as well. So, man, I don't even, we can go a lot of different ways. Let me see what else I have to go to. Where do you want to go, man? I know that we had a list of guys. Any place in particular maybe you want to go? We've hit Devontae Adams. We've hit Cooper Kupp. I got a name that I maybe have in the back of my head, but we can go anywhere you want to go as well, man.
Go for it.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this up then. I went to the wrong spot. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. I think this is going to be a good one because this one, I think I'm going to end up doing it anyway. Okay. This is one that everyone's been talking about for quite some time, man. And it's one that we need to kind of address, right? Because there's a possibility. I don't want to say it's outside the possibility. Mr. Chris Godwin has been an absolute beast in all the years that he's been playing in the league. But last year, he did end up suffering a pretty bad injury. I don't know how that's going to affect his overall market value, but if he does come out there on the market, here's a guy that's put together a stellar career. He's going to go into the Ring of Fame for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Very well could be a future Hall of Famer, especially if he continues on this track. Last year, he just had 7 games. He put up 576 yards, 5 touchdowns. What do you think about adding a Chris Godwin? Because this is a name that everyone's been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be interested if Denver's going to look to spend on the open market wide receiver wise. I think this is a name you absolutely have to take a look at, Keith. Now my worry is if T. Higgins gets paid big time, the big bucks, Chris Godwin's probably the second best wide receiver on the open market as of right now. I mean, again, that free agent market's going to change as we get closer to free agency. We're still about a month away from free agency right now. So a lot of different things are going to change. But as of right now, he's a number 2 wide receiver, number two best wide receiver available out there on the free agent market. So going to be 29, I believe here in a couple of weeks, actually, to Mr. Chris Godwin. So, yeah, I mean, just going to have to see what his market is. I mean, this is a guy, again, that you're dealing with the injury issues. Like I said, every one of these free agents that, when these teams allow these players to become free agents, there's a reason for it usually. And that could be anywhere from injury issues to they can't pay the guy, or to maybe he's getting a little bit older, he's lost a step. What we're gonna have to see. I think Chris Godwin would be a nice fit with this Broncos offense next to Cortland Sutton, but it all depends on the money and what he's going to be making ultimately. But yeah, I mean, I think that out of all these wide receivers, at least Cooper Kupp and Deebo Samuel, and even probably Devontae Adams, I think Chris Godwin would be one of the guys top of my list. If I'm going to go free agent spending for a wide receiver, Chris Godwin's going to be one of those guys top of my board for me to target from the Denver Broncos. And I think for me, it's a deal that's, I mean, again, we'll see what Chris Godwin's looking for. Is he looking for that 1-year deal to maybe hit the market again next offseason and get paid the big bucks? Or is he looking for a multi-year deal? Maybe for the Denver Broncos, you're trying to structure that contract in a way that is maybe a little bit, try to back yourself up a little bit and a little bit more team friendly. But yeah, I mean, it just depends on what Chris Godwin's going to make. I would certainly target him. He's one of my favorite free agent wide receivers, and I think he'd fit really well with Cortland Sutton, with Marvin Mims, and give Bo Nix another veteran pass catcher, proven pass catcher to throw the ball to.
I think I'll add one more that he'd fit really well with, and I think it's Sean Payton, because I think this is a guy that absolutely loves football.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it, man. I mean, lives and dies for it. This is his life. This is his passion. This is what he wants to go out there and do. If you ever watch Chris Godwin, what he does out there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I mean, just a pro's pro when he's out there and he's on the field. You're absolutely right, man. Should be high on the target list. I just can't go out there and I can't be the guy that overpays for him, though, at the same time. I can't be the guy that, like you said, probably the second best guy after T. Higgins. What does that mean as far as a contract and what he's going to get paid? Where does he want to go? Does he want that 1-year prove-it deal and then re-hit the market? Will he do that? Does he want 3 years to try to finish out his his entire career with wherever he lands, it's tough to tell. It's tough to tell where what he's willing to do, where he's willing to go, what that'll actually demand. But Chris Godwin would be a guy that I want to have on the radar, and one of the guys I want to talk about.
Mhm.
For Michael Ronquillo, his health is just a problem for him, and it's always a problem in the past, man, when it seemed like was something that we were never really good at as an organization, was making sure that we had guys that maybe had issues and then we could maybe revive them. We were in the wrong side of the tracks as far as that was concerned, man. We would take guys that had injuries issues and then we would never see them again once they got to the Denver Broncos. So
well, and Keith, on Chris Godwin real quickly here, for me, we're tie back in that conversation again. Chris Godwin's probably not your number one wide receiver. I mean, I think him and Cortland Sutton are two number twos for this team that you would be having. Again, just comes down to the price and what you're willing to pay. But if T. Higgins' market goes up and continues to skyrise and you're getting in a bidding war, I don't think that's bodes well for the Broncos if they're willing to spend on a free agent wide receiver as far as the pursuit of Chris Godwin, because that means that the team that doesn't get T. Higgins is probably going to try to go out and get a guy like Chris Godwin, depending if there's real interest there. But that he's going to get paid. If T. Higgins gets paid big money, Chris Godwin is going to get paid big money as well. So, I mean, it just all depends. But I still think you're talking about two, wide receiver twos on this team and not a wide receiver one. That's why I think that, if you're going to have to invest into a wide receiver one, maybe that's the draft, or you're going to have to go pay draft picks to go get one.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get into that one next. I'm going to get into that one next. I got one queued up, but I got to get into a few comments. Like Pearl, who's going to turn 77 on Monday. Monday she turns 77. But she never gets old, man. And ain't that the truth? Pearl out there just freaking rocking it. Whether it be all these shows, whether it be coming in here and sponsoring this show and being a part of the comments and following our Denver Broncos. Man, Pearl, you're not getting old, even though you might be turning 77. I would have never guessed it. Happy early birthday. We'll give you a belated one come Tuesday as well. How's that?
Yeah, happy early birthday, Pearl. I think we think it's awesome, and we love having you part of the community. And I hope you enjoy your birthday on Monday.
Yeah, those are coming around the corner. Happy birthday, Pearl, man! That's fantastic. I'll fingers crossed you'll get a little message from me on your birthday. I'll be honest, I'm not always the best. Karen's coming in here saying happy early birthday to Pearl. Age is just a number, and hit that like button. Thank you, Karen. We appreciate that. I don't say that enough. People that can't that didn't come into the that came into the organization are injured and didn't get any better. Graham's just reminding us that that might have been Jake Butt. I love you all, says Pearl. We love you as well. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit another one, man. Like I said, one that might cost a little bit of money, one that might cost a little bit just in general. It's one that if you've been watching the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast, if you've been listening to the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast, you've heard our newest horseman, Kenny Kirkpatrick, come in here and talk about this gentleman once or twice. Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is the one guy that I think I have on here that played all 17 games. He put up 1,104 yards. He hauled in 7 touchdowns. And he very well could want out of New York with everything that's going on and everything that's happened since he's been there. I saw a trade, quote unquote, possibility out there of trading number ones plus a future first round draft pick. This was where a team that was, picking a little higher than us, Trevor. So we might have to kick in a little more in order to get that done. Garrett Wilson, instant upgrade to this Denver Broncos offense, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. He's very intriguing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, also the youngest wide receiver on this list that we have. So, he's explosive. And I mean, no matter what the quarterback issues that the Jets have had, he's still been able to be very durable for that team and be very impressive. And I just worry about what the Jets' asking price is going to be for Mr. Garrett Wilson, because I don't think they're just going to let him out the door easy. And I'm very skeptical they're even going to want to move him in general. I think that's part of the reason they want to also move off of Aaron Rodgers, to keep their guys happy in their locker room, build that offense around Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. But if you're the Denver Broncos, I think at least you have to make that phone call and see what the asking price is for Garrett Wilson. 3 years in the league, I mean, 1,000 yards every single season, 24 years old, going to be 25 in July or this summer, I believe, actually. And so, cheap rookie deal for now. You'll have to pay him in a couple of years, big money, but he's very intriguing wide receiver, and you absolutely, he's a guy that really stands out. I just don't know that the Jets are going to want to move off of him.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like I said, he could probably push the envelope on it. Captain's coming in here, not only trying to stump me in the background on Eagles defensive player that didn't play all that well for the Denver Broncos, but he's also coming in here and just reminding it, he's just 21 years old. This is a guy that I believe will be coming up on his final year of his contract, be playing on the final year of his rookie contract. So he's going to be wanting some dough. No question about it. This is a guy that you'll have to get under contract, and maybe that's something that you're doing over the summer if you make this trade. So it's going to cost you some big money for one Mr. Garrett Wilson. Gives you that instant number one. Does give you the opportunity. I know that maybe Michael Ronquillo and other Broncos country don't want to hear about this, but the opportunity of moving off of Courtland Sutton in the near future, because now you've kind of reset who your number one young wide receiver is on this team, and you can maybe continue to build around this individual. I agree with what Karen's saying here as well. Wilson is intriguing. And if all stars aligned, he's, again, one of those guys in my opinion, you might just have to have up there on your list. If I'm trading first-round picks or giving up my first-round pick, probably in that scenario for the Denver Broncos, we're going to have to give up our first-round pick in order to get him, plus a kicker. It still may be worth an option. I don't know if you find anybody quite like Garrett Wilson with a number one overall pick that you have at number 20. That's tough to find. And if you're having to kick in just a little bit more in order to ensure that you're the one that gets that guy, I don't know. It's definitely on the table. Maybe it's because I've been hearing my good friend Kenny Kirkpatrick come in here and in my ear, you know what I mean? Constantly talking Garrett Wilson. Yeah, it might just be an option for me. Karen says nope until we have another proven wide receiver. Sutton needs to stay, so she's not up for that. I would not like moving on from Sutton. I think that's what Pearl's trying to tell us here. Sutton is still elite, says Karen. Yeah. Oh, I would not mind moving on from Sutton, says one Miss Pearl. So, and she doesn't consider him elite. So, that's always another option as far as a kicker, but I don't know if I like the pairing. I'd like the pairing of a Garrett Wilson. I don't know. One of my most intriguing options there, man, if things were to work out. I'll get into go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, no. So just my last comments on Garrett Wilson. So he's 24 years old. He'll be 25 in July. But here's the thing, and he'll be going to his fourth year. So you're gonna have to pay him down the road. But for me, I look at these other teams around the NFL, Keith, like the Lions, even the Chiefs. They don't trade for number one wide receivers. I mean, you don't trade, because I think it's going to be multiple first-round picks to possibly trade for Garrett Wilson, or a first and a second-round pick. I mean, I think it's going to be more than just your first-round draft pick this year that you're going to have to give up for Garrett Wilson, because I don't think that the Jets are going to just going to give him away. The asking price is going to be high for him. And so for me, I just think that you build through the draft, and that's what I mean. Maybe it's a little bit of a boring saying, but Garrett Wilson's a great name, and he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but you don't see these teams be elite and win consistently just trading for number one wide receivers and just giving away draft picks for a wide receiver like that. I think if you can find that in the draft, or find a way to supplement that and get still maybe pay a wide receiver. I don't know about T. Higgins money, but still go out there and find a veteran wide receiver, as well as solve your other needs on this roster without having to kind of cap yourselves as far as assets. I mean, this team has assets. The Broncos have assets for the first time in a long time. Have more assets than for the first time probably since they traded for Russell Wilson. So yet they have to maximize on the flexibility that they have and solve multiple areas on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. So I just think my concerns with Garrett Wilson is that asking price is going to be too high. Love the player, love the wide receiver, but this team has more than just one need on this team right now.
Yeah. Last comment on this. Karen was saying in regards to Sutton, and it wasn't even his best year, but having Sutton on board will allow us to develop the other up and coming talent that we need to develop. And I think that we do have a lot of talent on this team that we would like to develop. I think that the coach has a lot of talent on this team that he would like to develop. Last year, the Buffalo Bills were kind of a mess when it came to wide receiver. They needed to develop some talent. Keon Coleman just came on. He ended up being a big piece for them. One of the ways they did it wasn't necessarily from the production of this gentleman, but maybe by his presence out there as well. Amari Cooper is another option out there. And then we'll get to one more last one after this before we wrap up this wide receiver talk. 8 games for the Buffalo Bills, just 297 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, back 9 of his career. Not going to cost you an arm and a leg, but do you take a chance on a guy like Amari Cooper? What are your thoughts on that? Because now this is a guy that maybe fits the dollar structure that you like a little bit better, Trevor.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that I like him over Deebo Samuel. I like him more than just trading away draft picks. I mean, I love the talent that Garrett Wilson, possesses, but Amari Cooper, I think he does add that veteran wide receiver presence on this team. I don't know if Amari Cooper is the same player he was a couple years ago, but I think that there's still something there. He can still give you something as well. I don't think it's going to cost you, like you just said, Keith, an arm and a leg to get him. But if you're looking to add a veteran wide receiver to this room alongside Cortland Sutton, this would be one of those guys that you're taking a look at in Mr. Amari Cooper. So yeah, I mean, I would be on board again. We said this a lot tonight for the right price, but I think that he would be a nice fit here in Denver and would give Bo Nix another veteran option to throw the ball to, a guy that can get open. Didn't work out in Buffalo, unfortunately. But with Buffalo, they like to spread the ball around to a lot of different wide receivers. Here in Denver, he'd probably be your number 2 wide receiver. In Cortland Sutton being the Broncos number 1, the Broncos number 1. That doesn't mean he's a number 1 around the NFL. But the Broncos number 1 wide receiver, Mark Cooper, would be that second guy to bring in here to Denver. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely an option that falls in that category of still giving you flexibility to go after other needs and fill those other needs. Yeah, Mark Cooper for me would definitely be an intriguing option.
Yeah, you're right, man. We didn't talk a whole lot of dollars and cents, but we said for the right price probably about 1 million times on this podcast this evening. But Amari Cooper for the right price, I think it would be an intriguing piece. The only thing I would say is I don't look at him as a number 2 at this point. I think he's kind of 3-ish, 4-ish, and that's just because of the talent that you have on your team and the opportunities that you want to give him or give them in comparison to maybe an aging Amari Cooper who you've brought in to again kind of solidify, have some assuredness, I guess you could say, especially if you got into those playoff type of games, man. Now this is a guy that you can kind of rely on, know that the game isn't too big for him, that the nerves aren't going to get to him. This is a guy that's proven his wit and or not his wit, but his capabilities in big games throughout. So a guy that could be very, very big when kind of maybe developing this talent, and a guy that maybe might just be even a better leader than what we see in one Cortland Sutton as well. So,
well, really quick,
yeah, go ahead, buddy.
I was going to say what he also allows you to do is he doesn't get in front of the young wide receivers you have on the roster, Devon Vele, Troy Franklin, some of these other guys here trying to develop. Amari Cooper gives you that veteran presence, not top dollar. Maybe he's not the wide receiver he was a couple years ago. but he's a veteran presence. He doesn't block those other guys from getting better and overtaking him eventually to be higher on the depth chart. So I think that's what another, another player like Amari Cooper on the open market, what that brings, kind of solves a lot of different needs in that wide receiver room and still gives the young guys a chance to overtake them and continue to grow and develop.
Yeah, good point. Good point. We'll go to the other side of things, man. We got just one last guy on here that we want to get in here and talk about, and this would not be the old veteran who's on his way out, just necessarily trying to bring along the younger guys. This would be right in the pack of maybe some of those younger guys, especially when it comes to the mentality. This is an interesting possibility as things again up in Seattle. Changes abound, and maybe a guy that's not necessarily been happy with his role. I don't know if he ever has been really happy with his role. Maybe that is telling to where how much you want him on this team, Trevor. I'm not really sure. But DK Metcalf with the Seattle Seahawks, with Geno Smith slinging him on the ball last year, 15 games, 952 yards and 5 touchdowns, dynamic, an impressive athlete, and just a specimen in general, and kind of a character at times. What do you think about DK Metcalf and what he could bring to the Denver Broncos? Is it a possibility in your mind?
I think it's definitely a possibility. That's another word that we've been saying out there tonight, possibility. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think DK Metcalf, 27 years old. I mean, didn't have the greatest year last year in Seattle. It's kind of a weird year for them in Seattle. They end up firing their OC this offseason and got a new one. Clint Kubiak's their OC now in Seattle. If Seattle's willing to move them, yes, I think that the Broncos should pick up the phone and call them. I don't know if maybe George Payton might be a little bit more on edge of trading with Seattle because the last time they traded with Seattle didn't work out too good. But I think that, yeah, I mean, I think he'd be another intriguing player to call on and see what you can, possibly get. For me, I'm probably not giving up, anything more than a 3rd round pick for him. I think that's kind of the year he had last year. Again, DK Metcalf, you can't just fall into the name. You got to look at his production over the years. Being a very productive player, of course he has in the past. It's just the past year just wasn't his best year, so his value's probably not going to be as high, I would say. And he's making a good amount of money this year. But yeah, I mean, it's like a 3rd round pick for DK Metcalf. Yeah, that'd be pretty, pretty intriguing for the Denver Broncos, and I think would definitely give you an upgrade alongside Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims.
Yeah, like you said, the age, it's 27. We're talking about the same age as Devon Vele at this point. But and a guy that's out there and really proven it and had some years in the NFL to where he can be considered a key piece to an offense. He is an absolutely intriguing idea. I'm a little, I think Karen's coming in and says, I like Metcalf's talent, but not his attitude if he's not happy. He is, I mean, he would become maybe the biggest diva that we would have at least immediately on our roster. Now, does that change when he signs on to what we're doing and how we're doing it here? Because I don't think he comes in the building and he's signed to a contract just allowed to be whoever he wants. We're not bringing in Ocho Cinco, you know what I mean, in order to be on the Denver Broncos. That's not going to work out. That's not the way I think we're going to run things as a Sean Payton-led Denver Broncos team. Mm-hmm. DK Metcalf, though, is a specimen. He's been an intriguing guy. And, to a little bit be on his side, I think he has been a little bit underutilized throughout his tenure up in Seattle, whether it be the fact that he just wasn't really targeted when Russell Wilson was up there, or now kind of the, again, the maybe not the best quarterback, situation, for a talent like Debo, or not Debo, but DK Metcalf up in Seattle. It's it'd be interesting to see what he could do with a different quarterback pairing. And it might just be worth it. It might be worth touching base, getting in contact with the agent, with the player, with the team, figuring out exactly what's out there.
You know what? Good is also a good thing with DK Metcalf. So last year, I watched some Seattle games and I watched some film on DK Metcalf. You know what he loves to do as well? Not just be a wide receiver threat downfield, but he's a capable blocker. He's willing to put his body on the line to block, and that's huge for I think what Sean Payton would look for in a wide receiver. And that's just I think that's worth the money given the 6'4" wide receiver, that length and that size he brings. I think I think Seattle would be a little bit on the crazy side to kind of get rid of DK Metcalf right now. And I know that Karen said she had some issues about his personality. I mean, if DK Metcalf really wanted to, he could have asked it out of Seattle before. I mean, this season.
Yeah.
I mean, he could ask midpoint, the trade deadline out. So I understand the issues with his personality and whatnot, but I think he would fit fine with Denver. I think that Sean Payton would get the best out of him here in Denver, and he'd work with the Sean Payton offense. He's a capable blocker, a willing blocker, and also big time wide receiver threat downfield. Imagine that size with Cortland Sutton and DK Metcalf on the side with Bo Nix. The amount of touchdown opportunities that Bo Nix is going to have just to throw the ball up to DK Metcalf. I mean, a lot of times in Seattle, he was getting double teamed a lot. So that really opened up the passing game for a guy like Jackson Smith, Nick Jigba, and a lot of those guys. So, I mean, DK Metcalf's definitely high on the list that we had tonight, wide receiver wise. He's definitely high on that list for guys that I would be looking to acquire from the Denver Broncos because I think that he solves multiple needs for this offense if he was able to get acquired by Seattle.
It's, trying to keep up with everything, man. Keeping up with the posse, saying hello to our good friend, not just good friend, one of the horsemen, Kenny Kirkpatrick, who was able to jump in, say good evening to everybody, and been busy, but saying that we have an amazing show. Also had to jump in and say hello to Patrick Wiltsey. Patrick Wiltsey saying aloha, boys, and then he's saying aloha, boys. Maybe because he knows, hey, he was coming in and saying hello, but also it's almost time to get out of here, and he's saying goodbye, but he's also doing it with 200 stars, man. And Patrick, I feel like you give so much to us with your presence, your support, and all the different ways that you're able to do that for us, man. We appreciate the 200 stars as well. Thank you very, very much, man. And with that being said, I mean, we do kind of got to wrap it up. I'll go a little bit over time. Captain is coming in here over on YouTube, and he's saying, stay with the draft for now. If someone good becomes available later, then maybe. Trevor, I mean, are you and Captain like one and the same? Is this your this sounds like you, man. This sounds like you. Are you right on board with what Captain says?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I mean, I believe in draft and develop. I think that's where this Broncos organization's at. I mean, we called all these options intriguing, which they are intriguing because the Broncos, the lack of weapons they have on the offensive side of the ball, and that's no disrespect to the young guys. They're growing. I understand that. Want to give them time to grow before I judge them too harshly. But yeah, I mean, I think that you got to look to the draft. There's definitely weapons in the draft to go out and get, and draft and develop is I think huge. That's been proven to be successful in the past. So Keith, I mean, look at Detroit Lions. I mean, that team and that organization was a disaster for a long time, and they were able to get back on their feet by drafting and developing and doing it the right way. Now, if someone becomes available, absolutely, like a guy like DK Metcalf, yes, I would be very much so intrigued about that. Cooper Kupp, we shall see. Some of these guys are on that will shall see list to see what they got anything left in the tank. But yeah, if there's someone that becomes available that you want, and you can still go out and acquire them and be aggressive and still get the players you want and fill the needs you want, yeah, absolutely, I would be on board with that.
Yeah. I think you just led me to one last thought before I get out of here, and then we'll get some final thoughts before we completely jump out of here, Trevor. But we're just starting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these names, well, they're never going to become available. They'll be gobbled up by the teams that have their rights to them already, or that they've been on for now. But the other side of this, Trevor, is we're going to have surprise cuts.
Yeah.
It happens every single year. We don't know what's out there, what's lurking, what's looming, what possibilities may lie in front of us. Just means that you got to be tuned in to every single one of our podcasts, man, because we go live every Tuesday, every Friday, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well, so we can take you on the go. So I can't wait for this season to unfold, or this off season to unfold. It's what feels like it's a season in and of itself, but this off season to unfold with all the different pieces and parts. Because like I said, we're talking about a lot of guys that may not even come to fruition, but we haven't talked about all those guys that may just be out there for the taking here in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely, Keith. And there's a lot of things that are going to change this offseason. We haven't even mentioned that the Broncos still have and need a running back and need a tight end. So as much as we're talking about this team wanting to spend big on a wide receiver or go be aggressive for a wide receiver, well, they still have other weapons on this team that they need as well, at other positions, tight end and running back. And I believe right now they're going to be more invested in adding a running back and a tight end than probably a wide receiver. And not saying they can't, and not saying that they won't add a veteran wide receiver. I just don't think they're going to go big game spending for a wide receiver because of you needing a tight end and the need of a running back. So, but I mean, this is fun to go through this and the list of possibilities of a lot of, I will say it again, intriguing possibilities for the Denver Broncos this offseason, because there's a lot of playmakers that are out there, and only a few will probably be available for the Denver Broncos if they so choose.
For the right price, right, Trevor? For the right price.
Right price.
For the right price, I'd pay $1 million for you to sit aside me every single episode, man. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate the posse jumping in here and making this a fantastic episode. You guys were just absolutely amazing. Whether you're out there dropping stars, Michael Ronquillo, Patrick Wiltsey coming in here, helping us out, whether you're just in here with a conversation. Captain was coming in here with some great thoughts and comments, and Karen and Pearl, and boy, Ernie Mays was dropping some great ideas, especially early. Of course, we had Kenny Kirkpatrick. I mean, just everybody, YouTube, Facebook. Thank you so much for jumping in here, being a part of the podcast, and really making the show everything it is. Trevor, why don't you get a few goodbyes in here? I'll say a few goodbyes, and we'll wrap it all up until another podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate everybody coming in here live and tuning in on a Saturday night. We weren't able to go live last night with Valentine's Day. Hope everybody had a fantastic Valentine's Day, whether you celebrated or not. But again, appreciate our posse for watching live, whether you watch after the fact. Like, share, subscribe. We appreciate it. And we can't wait to continue to cover this team throughout the offseason and throughout going into next season. I think this is an exciting time of Broncos country, and yeah, I mean, and excited to cover it and be here for you guys. So hope everybody has a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for joining live. Thank you for watching after the fact. And we really, really, really appreciate you, everybody, everybody in the posse. If you're not in the posse, join the posse. It's fun. Everybody has discussion on the side or with us. We make sure to get everybody's comment on screen as much as possible. And so just so much love and appreciation for everybody. Thank you to everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. Stay warm. And we'll see you next time. Go Broncos.
Absolutely, man. Always go Broncos. Always check out the Rocky Mountain Sports Network site. That's RockyMountainSN.com. You can check us out on Facebook as well, Rocky Mountain Rocky Mountain Sports Network on Facebook as well. We love and appreciate you all so much. I was going to just say to a few other Big E Bronco that came in here, I forgot about them because they came in here really early. Victory Lap coming with some great ideas. Ernie Mays, I think I said your name, but if not, wanted to make sure I got you in there as well. It's been another fantastic episode of the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast. Of course, we're brought to you by Rocky Mountain Sports Network. We're sponsored by the amazing Morgan Trinkets. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Apple Podcast. We're on Spotify. Hope you guys are out there enjoying us wherever you get your episodes, wherever you listen to your Denver Broncos talk. Make sure that the Denver Bronco Roundup podcast is part of that. We would appreciate it a ton. We're going to get out of here. Like Trevor said, enjoy the rest of your weekend. It's going to be a quick turnaround as we come back on Tuesday with another fantastic episode. But until then, make sure you keep those boots in the stirrups, guns in the holsters, and the Denver Broncos in your heart. Until next time, we're out of here. Have a fantastic night, everyone. Good night.